I hear the biggest problem is in their hiring practices.
Mm-hmm.
How can they know? And it's a big investment to hire somebody. And a lot of conversation I have with them are the tools from an insurance standpoint that can vet some employees, drug testing, background checks.
Sure.
But there are a lot of people who can pass these things who are still not going to be a good fit culturally or for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And hiring good employees could be the most difficult thing an employer has to do. What do you do to work with your owners and managers to help coach them to making good practices, starting employees on a good note, and then continuing that?
There are a number of evaluation tools out there, personality type inventories that you can have prospective employees take that can show whether or not there's going to be a good fit. I mean, you have Myers-Briggs, you have DISC, you have some of those others. A lot of companies don't use them as part of their hiring process, really. And what happens is, especially if you have a company large enough where you have an HR department, they're going to do the reference background checks and they're going to do the interviews. And so depending on the level that you bring in a person in at, really is going to, I think, dictate how focused you're going to be on whether or not this employee is a good fit. And let me give you an example. If you're bringing somebody in to be in a leadership role, it's discovering or understanding, okay, when you say do they fit the culture and the climate of that company, what kind of leader are they? And people so often, owners so often, HR departments so often will check with previous employers. Okay, well, if I'm a positional leader, meaning that I am the executive director, and you're an employee, you're going to do what you're told if you want to keep your job. All right, that isn't a relational leadership. However, if you get as part of your references, what volunteer leadership roles have you been in where you're not being paid? And the people who are working for you in that volunteer role are not being paid. So if you treat them as underlings, they don't need to be here anymore. They're volunteers. So being able to ask employees, especially leadership role, and that's what I try to work with a lot, is at the leadership level, is what have they done? What leadership volunteer groups have they led? And what have been the result of their role? Have they grown what they've done? And then being able to have somebody to call within, say, the United Way or any other volunteer organizations to see how has this person been as a leader in that volunteer role that they filled. And you may find there's been high turnover in that because of the way they act, because I'm the coordinator for this. Who cares? It's all about relationships. And I don't, for what I do, I don't delve in a lot into the hiring processes. What I do when I'm working with an owner is that if they don't have a process already in place, is help them try to put in a concrete process that is the same for everybody that they're hiring, that they have, whether it's the background checks, whether it's the drug testing, whether it's the interview questions, that they have a process in place that allows them to vet that prospective employee better than they might be doing already. Now, they may already have a great process in place, and in my role, I don't come in to change that unless I see something that is really askew. If their turnover rate, for instance, with the new employees that they're bringing in, they keep them for 2 weeks and the employee quits. My first question isn't going to be, was this a bad hire? My first question is going to be, what caused the employee to leave? Where did it break down in between him being hired, his references came back stellar, and all of a sudden he quit? I mean, especially if it's a company that's had a high turnover. What's the problem? What's the problem here? And it could be any number of things. More often than not, it's either the working conditions or it's the leadership. It's the micromanaging over the people that they just don't want, especially now with millennials. They don't want to be micromanaged. Give them a job to do, let them do their job. And then evaluate them, and of course, make sure that you also have in place things that are going to recognize what they're doing. And again, money isn't it, specifically. It's a lot of different things.